This is our first video clip in our LIDAR series, and I want to just introduce a couple of points about LIDAR and the creation of LIDAR data sets. So, of course, a very important thing in dealing with LIDAR data, because LIDAR data sets work in the same way or in a similar fashion to layer files, is that we have our data in the right place and we have our connections properly made. So again, what I've done is set up a map document, and again I want to remind you in terms of the document properties that my default geodatabase is someplace that I have access to it. So in this case it's on my temporary drive, E drive. In addition, I have it stored as relative path names to data sources. Okay, so those two things are in place. The next thing I want to point out is the characteristics of what you might see when you download the data. So let me open up an example here. And so what I have, you'll notice here, is the map document that I'm working in. I have my working directory right here, project 2. But then what you'll notice is two different ways that we might see LIDAR data sets. In the state of Pennsylvania, we actually would have a series of files associated with them. So in this case, the tile ID is 4200136, but we have associated with that a DEM folder, a contour folder, and a breakline folder, as well as the basic point cloud data, which doesn't have an underscore folder extension. And so in this case it's actually a backup that I've made, so it has that one after it. But you can notice here this one does not have that. Now, you don't need all of these necessarily to deal with LIDAR data. In fact, if we look at this one, this happens to be from the USGS. This is Florida Keys tile. And if we were to look at it, you notice that there's just one folder. And typically, if that's the case, it is simply the folder containing your LAS data set. Now remember, what we're going to be working with are LAS files, but we're going to have to move those into an ARC environment in order to manipulate them. All right, I'm going to close this now, and we'll look at how we see these things in terms of our catalog. So I'm going to open up our catalog, and I'm going to move to that same folder. And here's our project 2. So again, I'll go to our shorter connection. We can kind of see these things a little bit easier here. Under project 2, again, here are our files. But you'll notice that ARC doesn't read any of the LAS files in their format. There's nothing there. Breaklines, on the other hand, are treated as a line feature class, as are our contours. And our DEM is, in fact, a raster. In this case, it's in the TIFF format. What you'll notice in the Florida Keys file is the only thing that's actually visible here is its XML or metadata file. So what we need to do next is, in fact, create our LAS data set so that we can work with it. And in the next video, we will deal with that. But again, in this video, I simply wanted to point out the basics of setting up your map, and in fact what some of the derived data sets might look like. So we'll end this one with just those derived resources. So for example, here is our DEM of the area of Pittsburgh, and again this is bare ground. If we look at the contour data, we can add that as well, and we'll lay that over. And again, what we would see in this case is that the contour data is very, very dense. In this case, it's a 2-foot contour interval. And then lastly, I'm going to add our break lines. And here are our break line data. And this is, I'm going to put this on the adjacent area. You can see it. And you'll notice that in the case of the break lines, if I classify the break lines into its unique values, what we're going to see is bridges, drains, lakes, ponds, other break lines, paved and unpaved roads. So these are all things where a defined break in topography would occur. Okay, that's it for this first video. Next time we'll come back and we will create a lost data set.